Hey everybody, guess who? It's me again. All right, so I wanted to just share with you another brief video, again, talking about works cited entries and text citations, all that kind of jazz. But in this video, instead of showing you how to craft a works cited entry for a source that can be found on the library's databases, I want to show you how to set up one from a source from a general internet site. One that you might just Google somewhere, or, maybe it's a YouTube video or a podcast, or just any kind of random internet site, you know, hopefully to be a good site, a vetted site. Maybe you've done all that so-called crap testing, right? You got to make sure it's a good, credible site. You don't want to just do some kind of like Charlie's blog site or something like that. Obviously, you always want to make sure it's a good, credible site. Remember, this is an academic research paper you're submitting, right? There's a college research paper, so make sure that all the sites you're using are good, you know, good sources you're using, right? So with that in mind, let me show you how you're going to cite and set up a works cited listing for your sources. And again, you can always use a MLA style guide. Nothing wrong with that. It's always good to know how to do that, but this is another way that you can do that I think might be a little bit easier. So again, remember, earlier I showed you kind of a setup for um, setting up sources for a paper with the topic of solitary confinement, right? Um, so you already saw kind of one source I was using. So with that an example, I'm going to show you kind of a continuation of that same paper. So let me call that up for you here real quick. So I've got now a second paragraph going. And you can see this here, right? So this is a second paragraph, right? You've already kind of seen part of this. So I'm going on here, and I found another website. So you can see that I found another one, and I've continued writing. So where did I get that? Well, here's what I did. So I'm going to share this again. And I just went to another website. So what I did here was I just did what anyone else is going to do. I went to a website and I just kind of Googled some stuff, and I went and looked around and just kind of looking for something that looks, quote unquote scholarly, quote unquote kind of academic. What looks interesting to me, and what do I think is going to look most helpful to my paper? Maybe not so biased, not so whatever. It's going to help me most, help my paper most to inform my audience. And so as I go through here, I'm looking, and the one I found that I think might help me, I'm just going to choose this one right here, Solitary Confinement by Penal Reform International. Excessive use of solitary confinement in prisons around the world is becoming an increasing concern, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to choose this one right here, okay? Solitary confinement. So I find some information here, right, just like the last paper, and I'm going to read through it. Right, this isn't very big, but it's got some really good information here, right? I could click on some of these little sub websites or whatever. You can find these links, whatever. But I find some stuff here that I'm going to use in my paper. What I particularly like about this particular site is it's got some good facts and figures and stats and things like that, right? And obviously, as I'm sure you probably know, if you're going to be putting things in your paper, if you have things like stats and figures and dates and things like that, clearly you need to cite that. You need to say where you got that information from, right? Because that, I mean, is a serious red flag. If you have stats, facts, figures, dates, numbers on your paper and it's not cited, if you don't say where you got that from, I mean, that is a serious, serious red flag. So make sure if you have any kind of numbers, stats, dates, figures, anything on your paper, make for dang sure you have it cited on your paper. So I see some numbers here, right? It's estimated that 80 to 100,000 individuals are being held in some form of isolation. I mean, that crazy. I don't know if you're into this kind of stuff, but really interesting numbers here. Really interesting. And that they're confined to cells for 22 to 24 hours a day with only meaningful interaction. So I want to put this information in my paper, right? As you can see, if I go back to my paper, That's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. So I'm going to go back to my paper, and you can see my next paragraph here. It's exactly what I did. The number of individuals who are currently held in solitary confinement is astonishing. According to the website, what's the name of the website? You'll see that in a second. It is estimated that 80,000 to 100,000 individuals are being held in some form of isolation. And see that in brackets, by the way? What that means is whenever you see that in a direct quote, that means that's my own words, right? I'm inserting my own words. So that's my words in a bracket. And it is commonly understood to be the physical isolation of individuals who are confined to their cells for 22 to 24 hours a day and allowed only meaningful interaction with others. So you'll see again, there's not a citation there yet because we're going to put that in last. We're going to put that in last. Remember how we did that on the last one? We're going to put that in last. And then again, I like to put in something after the quote that's kind of my summation, my own words of what I think that means, my sort of analysis, if you will. The federal government needs to decide if it is morally and socially acceptable to keep human beings locked up and isolated effectively in cages for nearly entire days at a time. Okay, so that's a good quote. And so, by the way, this is what you're going to do for your entire paper. I mean, I know when you see like, oh my gosh, 5 pages, how on earth am I going to get 5 pages out of this? It's really not that hard, right? I mean, if you find a subject that you're really interested in, it's really not that hard. I mean, I'm already on my second page here. I mean, I can find source after source after source, and it's really not that hard. You just find a couple quotes here and there, a couple paragraphs, it'll add up pretty quick. And you're not limited to just 5 or 6 sources. You can have 10, 12, whatever it takes. Just keep finding stuff that you're really interested in, and it'll just add up really, really fast. So anyway, so that's my quote. That's my quote. So how do I put in a works cited entry? Well, of course, you're going to see that if I go back to my source here, there is no fancy little cite button anywhere. No cite button, no cite button. How do I, and there is nothing on here that says citation anything. So how on earth do I create a works cited entry? Well, again, as I said, you can always go to your style guide, come up with your own works cited entry, which is fine. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. Sometimes it can be a little complicated. Is this a online article? Is it an online journal? Is it an online website? Sometimes that can be a little complicated. So there's a much easier way to do that. And what you do is you do something like this. Let me just show you. So let me stop this. So you will find in your, there, in your, okay, it's not working here. Give me a second. In your, hang on a second. In your, we can see that, in your information folder, right here, in your information folder in Blackboard, you will see something that says Noodle Tools Bibliography Generator. Noodle Tools Bibliography Generator. So when you click that guy, you're going to see something that says Noodle Tools Express. Noodle Tools Express. And what this does is this will build you a works cited entry. So basically what you do is you're going to create a form, essentially, that will create your entry. So you're just going to you're going to essentially fill out a bunch of blanks and stuff, and I'll show you how to do that. So of course we're using MLA, not APA, not Chicago, MLA, and select a citation type. So it'll drop down menu, and you're going to come down here. In this case, it's going to be a website. Not this website, but an electronic website. So you can scroll all the way down until you see electronic website. And it's way down here like so. And then you're going to create citation. And then what you're going to do here is you're going to fill out all these little blank spots. And the important thing to remember here is you're only going to fill out the blanks you know, only the boxes you know. Some things you're not going to know. Some things you're not going to know. Right? There's some information here that you're just not going to know. So if you don't know it, just leave it blank. So for example, the URL. So I'm gonna be sharing screens a lot, which is total craziness here. So bear with me. So for the URL here, so what you're gonna do is go back to the article here. So hopefully I can do this here really easily. Go back to the article. Oh boy, let's see if I can do this. Hang on here. Hang on here. Okay, I'm not sure exactly where I left off. Sorry for that little break again. There's a problem with trying to share too many windows in Zoom. Um, I apologize there. It's a Blackboard thing. You guys probably don't know how much I enjoy Blackboard. But anyway, so what I've done, I remember I mentioned just before we took our little break there, um, that you only fill in the boxes you know. You only fill in the boxes you know. So whatever, if you're doing a YouTube video, if you're doing a website, if you're doing an article, whatever you're doing, you only fill in the boxes you know. So I mentioned to you before I had that solitary confinement website from that article I just showed you. So I'm only filling in the boxes I know. So the only boxes I know were the URL, that was that big long website URL at the top of the page. I just copied it and pasted it in there. There was no date on that entire article, that entire website. There was no date. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you'll find a date. It might be on the very bottom of the page. It might be underneath a picture or something. In this case, there was no date. So I'm just going to leave that blank. In this box, it's the date of access, which might be, that's the date you actually look at the article. So I just clicked on today. So that's today's date. So this is really important here. You probably didn't notice, but this particular article did not have an author's name. There was no author. There was no author. So I'm going to leave that blank. Sometimes there might be an author. So, I would click here and put, the author or the editor, but there was no author here. So I'm leaving that blank. It's really important, and you'll see why in a second. So there's no author, so I'm leaving that blank. No author here. The title of the article or web page, in this case, it's the article's name, was Solitary Confinement, just the title of the article, and then the title of the website itself. The title of the website is, in this case, Penal Reform International. If the site has a publisher, like if it was published by somebody, you could put something there. In this case, very often there is no publisher site. Sometimes if it's like pbs.org or something like that, there might be something, but rarely, and it will usually say published by something. So this time there is nothing. If there's an edition or version number or revision, you'll see that. If there's an editor or publisher, you'd put that. But again, if you don't know it, if it doesn't just jump out at you, leave everything blank. And when you're done with everything, save it. And after you save it, this is your citation information right there. This is your your works cited entry. So just like we did before on the Kali databases, what you're going to do is you're going to copy this whole thing like so. You're going to copy that, copy it. And I'm going to go back to my paper. Hopefully this works. So go back to my paper. I'm going to go back to my works cited entry. Remember we had our last one there. And go to the next line. And just like before, don't just copy and paste it, but again, do that middle one. You're going to merge the formatting because we want the formatting to be the same again. So see how there's some things that are italicized here. So we want it to be italics, just like that. And it's okay that if you have, see how it kind of jumps a line here, that's fine because it's got a big old long website entry. That's for web URL, so that's fine. It kind of looks funky like that. But that is your works cited entry. So that's fine. Okay. So now we're going to go back up here a second time to put in our in-text citation. So remember how I told you on this one, your in-text citation is always the first element. So where that guy had the first element here, first element. So what do you think in this case, the works cited entry, I'm sorry, I'm getting all confused. The in-text citation is going to look like here. So the first element. What do you think the works cited, the in-text citation is going to be in this one? What do you think it's going to be? Any guesses? You want to shout it out? You guessed it. It's going to be this. That is your works cited entry. Just like that, and it's going to look exactly like that, which means quotation marks and everything. So what I usually do is just copy this, like so. Come back here. The only thing you need to worry about is the periods. The periods always go at the end of the parenthetical. So just go like this, put in the parentheses, paste like that, and then just fix up the, whoops, what I do. And just fix the period. So that's how your citation would look. That's if there is no authors. Remember, there is no author in this case. So see how the citation matches? Name of the article in quotation marks. Name of the article in quotation marks. So everything matches. See how everything matches? First element, first element, first element, first element. By the way, this is how I mentioned to you, I think early in the semester. We check all this stuff. This stuff is very important. So when people submit papers and, we look for things like, I look for things like, I check all these quotes, making sure, I go through these and make sure, did this guy get this quote from this page number? Because I can check to see, yep, I know these quotes came from between pages 20 and 26, 20 and 26, right? Came on page 20. So this stuff is super, super important. These citations have to match everything on these works cited lists. That's why citations are important. Works cited things are important. All of this stuff is really, really important in your research stuff. So hopefully this stuff, you'll find this stuff helpful. If you need any questions or comments or any stuff, please let me know. All right. Good luck to you. Hopefully you'll find this stuff helpful. If you need any questions, comments, please let me know. All right. Good luck. Take care, and we'll talk to you guys soon.